So, since we're going to be spending a fair amount of time together, you may as well know a little bit about me and what I've done in animation. This is just a series of slides that just talks a little bit about what I've done and where I come from. So, I grew up in London. Is the street where I grew up. That's me wearing a particularly silly hat at school. And the big influence on my life from a very early age was my father, who you probably already know is Richard Williams, who's the author of the Animator's Survival Kit, and almost all of the teaching techniques that I know owe a very great debt of gratitude to my father, and especially to his book, which I think it's fair to say is now the standard textbook for animators. And you should, if you don't have a copy of the Animator's Survival Kit, run out and buy one, because an awful lot of the stuff that we're doing on the course is material which is covered in his book. That's him playing his trumpet, one of his true loves in Dixieland jazz, and there's me, very young, next to him. Anyway, the book is wonderful. It's I mean, there are a lot of good books on animation out there, but if you have to buy just one, I would say that Dad's book is the best one to get. Now, Dad used to have a studio in Soho Square in London. That's him on the bottom left there, and he used to surround himself with really great animators from the golden age of animation in the 30s and 40s. That's Art Babbitt. He was one of Disney's great animators. He did the Dance of the Mushrooms in Fantasia, animated The Wicked Queen and Snow White, among many other highlights of his career. And over here, that is Ken Harris, who did lots and lots of animation for Chuck Jones on the Looney Tunes shorts. And over there is Grim Natwick, who invented Betty Boop. And Dad brought all these characters over to London to teach his staff and train his animators and try and make the studio as good as it could possibly be. So I really grew up with the medium, surrounded by it, and with a huge respect for the material that had been done in the 30s and 40s at the Warner Brothers studio and at Disney. I don't know who this kid is here. It looks like it might be me, but it isn't. And that's Grim again, the Betty Boop guy, who's a really, really talented animator, really, really awesome guy. And here's another shot of them. There's Art Babbitt again on the right, and he really did a lot of the training over at Dad's studio, and a lot of his notes wound up in the Animator's Survival Kit in adapted form, and so I pass them on to you now through my course. One of my early career highlights was age 5 in 1972. I did the voice for Tiny Tim in The Christmas Carol, and you can still see that on YouTube if you fancy a free laugh. So I attended art school in London. I went to Camberwell School of Arts and Crafts, where I had a really great training in drawing and sculpture and the fundamentals of the visual arts. And my first ever job was on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And I had a little help there because Dad was the animation director, so I did have it easy. And I had no real formal training in animation at that time. It was very hard to get formal training in animation. Much easier now to find places to study, but at the time it was pretty difficult to find anywhere that was any good. And Roger Rabbit really changed the rules for everything. I mean, until then, people had decided that the medium was pretty much dead, and the huge success of the Rabbit changed all that. And there were lots and lots of Oscars, and it's my grandmother there, looking very proud. And I went to university after that, to Oxford as my graduation day, and after that I went to work on Dad's film The Thief and the Cobbler. If you're interested in learning more about The Thief, there's an excellent Wikipedia page about it. It's kind of a sad story. The movie never got finished, but it was a really wonderful training for me, and I learned a huge amount about animation working on that picture, which was never finished, but there is a recobbled cut you can see on YouTube if you want to see what it might have looked like had it been finished. I was briefly a lawyer, which comes in handy. You'd be surprised how often it's good to have a bit of legal training in your background. And I still do a cartoon strip in the Times called Queen's Counsel, which you can see on the Times website and also at my own website, www.qccartoon.com. But then I went back to animation in the 90s. There was a huge boom, and I worked on Quest for Camelot for Warner's, which was not such a great movie, but then was lucky enough to work on The Amazing Iron Giant, which was wonderful. I got to work for an incredibly talented Brad Bird, who's one of the most wonderful directors I've ever had the good fortune of working for. That's me at my desk at on Quest. You can see it was all 2D in those days, and I stayed working on 2D pictures for quite some time. Went over to DreamWorks, worked on El Dorado and Spirit, Piglet, Disney in Japan, but then got lucky. I was trained by Blue Sky in New York, and that was really CG boot camp for me. That was back in 2004, and they trained me in CG animation, and that was a real lifesaver. It was a wonderful movie to work on, and I really was able to learn 3D skills at that point, and then went back to LA. I worked for Sony ImageWorks, Monster House, and Open Season, two huge, really wonderful experiences. Especially Monster House, I learned to do mocap animation, and Open Season got some really nice shots on that movie as well. And then I came back to London, where I've been doing visual effects work, which has involved learning a whole series of extra skills. Now and again, I'd get to do fun stuff like redesigning the Snape Patronus deer in the last two Harry Potter films. So that was really fun. I still do other sort of graphic design projects. Here's some deck chairs I did for the Royal Parks in London. Sort of silly stuff, but fun, and I also pitch ideas for movies. My Haunted House is a picture I'm working on at the moment, and Litterbugs is a TV series I'm hoping to get off the ground if I can. So always pitching, always working on new stuff, and always looking for new and interesting things to do in the field of animation. And I hope that to share some of my passion that I have for the medium with you, working on the course, and hope to transfer as many of the skills I've acquired over the years to you. So very much looking forward to working with you in the course, and I hope you find that it's everything you hoped for.